Meanwhile, congressional Republicans are doubling down on their extreme positions. Kevin McCarthy, the Republican leader of the House, has said that if they take control of the House, our work is, quote, far from done. He wants the United States Congress to pass a law that would ban abortion nationwide. Senator Lindsey Graham called for an abortion ban that criminalizes doctors and nurses who provide medical care for their patients in need. If Republicans get their way with a national ban, it won't matter where you live in America. So let me be very clear. If such a bill were to pass in the next several years, I'll veto it. But we can't let it pass in the first instance. Immediately after the Dobbs decision came down, I signed an order, and my administration took a number of actions to protect the access to reproductive health care, including emergency medical care, to protect a woman's right to travel from a state that prohibits abortion to a state that allows it, and to protect the privacy of sensitive health information, preventing states from tracking women or seeking help, because that's what some will do. But as I said when the Dobbs decision, we're fighting a battle in the courts as well, but as I said in the Dobbs decision when it was released, I want to repeat it again. The only sure way to stop these extremist laws that are put in jeopardy women's health and rights is for Congress to pass a law. And I've said before, the court got Roe right nearly 50 years ago, and I believe Congress should codify Roe once and for all. Right now, we're short a handful of votes. If you care about the right to choose, then you got to vote. That's why in these midterm elections are so critical to elect more Democratic senators to the United States Senate and more Democrats to keep control of the House of Representatives. And folks, if we do that, here's the promise I make to you and the American people. The first bill that I will send to the Congress will be to codify Roe v. Wade. And when Congress passes it, I'll sign it in January, 50 years after Roe was first decided the law of the land. And together we'll restore the right to choose for every woman in every state in America. So vote. You got to get out the vote. We can do this if we vote. Folks, I also have a message for the young people of this nation. I've always believed that this generation, this young generation, represents the best educated, most talented, least prejudiced generation in American history. And that today we face an inflection point. One of those moments that only come around every several generations, where there's so much change happening technologically, politically, and socially, that the decisions we make now are going to determine the future of our nation and the future of your generation for the next 30 or more years. And it only happens once every 5, 6 generations. I know that you may feel like it's an added burden on top of all you've already been through. And this young generation, my grandchildren and children have been through. I'm not saying you have to shoulder the burden alone. The task at hand and the task ahead is the work of all of us. What I am saying is you represent the best of us. Your generation will not be ignored, will not be shunned, and will not be silent. Just look at what happens when you speak out. 2 years ago, perhaps many of you voted for your first time in an election or volunteered for your work in your first election. You understood the choices and the stakes. And because of your experience and power to vote, you elected me president and Kamala vice president, the highest ranking woman ever to be elected in American history. And since then, with your help, we've delivered enormous progress for the nation. The most significant gun safety law in 30 years. And by the way, if you give me a Democratic Congress, we're going to ban assault weapons again. I did it once, I'm doing it again. And the most significant infrastructure law in 70 years to have us, you know, we ranked up like in the 20s in terms of infrastructure. In the United States of America, for God's sake. We made the most significant commitment ever in all of history to protect our environment. Ever, ever, ever. $360 billion. And with your help, we're forgiving student debt. By the way, we really worked hard to get the system right as to how you apply. Just since yesterday, 4 million more people applied. I'm keeping my promise that no one should be in jail merely for using or possessing marijuana. You should not be in jail. Together, we're making sure our democracy delivers for people, but we know there's much more progress that needs to be made. And we know that there remains real options. In 2020, you voted and delivered the change you want to see in the world. In 2022, you need to exercise your power to vote again for the future of our nation and the future of your generation.
Just to start with the speech today, he twice asked voters to remember how they felt the day the Dobbs decision came down. Is there a sense that people have forgotten, or that perhaps some of the energy in the immediate wake of that, particularly amongst some Democrats, has started to wane over the course of the last several months?
So again, not going to get into the political climate here, but what I will say is that it is very clear that majority of Americans, support Roe. Majority of Americans disagreed with the decision that was made by the Supreme Court just a couple of months ago. And so I'll just leave it there. You see that in polling after polling after polling. And so the president is going to continue to talk about the issues that impact the American people. And this one, majority of Americans have been very clear where they stand on Roe.